What is your paper about? And do you even know what your paper is about? Do y'all know what y'all are actually about to write, or do you are gonna wing it and see what the heck happens? I think God will tell me what I'm gonna type out when I get to my computer, and it's gonna come by divine presence, and I'm sure enough, it's gonna flow into a beautiful thing. Do y'all know what your paper is about yet, or not? How many of y'all are kind of unsure about your paper coming up? Y'all can be honest. I'm not grading your papers, don't worry. Are y'all a little unsure? How many of y'all are just honestly have no idea what you're going to write about in the next couple months? Yeah, that's cool. That's good. That's the best place to be. If you don't know where you're at yet, that is the best place to be right now at this time, because there's so many opportunities kind of go into where you're going to be at in the future. So do you know what your paper is about? And I'm going to tell you all the truth. If y'all don't know what your paper is about, we also know that you don't know what your paper is about. Every time I read an essay, the moment I get to about the third sentence, I'm like, oh yeah, this guy, he didn't practice for this. He just kind of winged it. And it's so simple because you could just tell that there is a flow to what you're writing when you actually do know what you're writing about. So one, do you know what you're writing about? See how I wrote this on here to kind of make it easy. What is the root of your paper? What? If I were to tell you what is the root of our Batman and Spider-Man debate, the root is, why is one hero better than the other? And why do we value one hero more than another hero? Is that a line of ethics that we kind of go into? Imagine how I could kind of play with that. Already I'm like, okay, I could kind of see how this could become an ethical discussion. It's not just about resources or economical decisions. It's also about who is a better hero. And that's what we kind of look into. Your papers might, what is one subject of the paper? Someone could tell me one subject of the paper they're about to write about in the future. Anyone? Jesus. My paper is just about Jesus, man. Okay, so what are you going to go into with your paper? Oh, that's awesome. Okay, do you know your 3 major events yet? Or okay, cool. So you're already doing some really good things. You're laying out a strong foundation of the points you're going to make, and you know you're the root of your paper. What are the events that led to this? Why is it so prominent? And why is it a big part of what we believe right now? And I'm going to give you 3 points. So you're already laying out a good, solid paragraph and essay foundation, if that makes sense. So what is the root of your guys' paper? If you all don't know the roots, it's simple. You just got to work backwards. Y'all probably know the ending more than the beginning at this point. And that's simple, right? How many of y'all have a harder time just kind of getting started with the paper? Yeah, right? And it's because we could kind of already see the end of our argument because we're already living it more than the beginning of our argument. We just don't know exactly where to start. And finding the root of that paper is just kind of working yourself backwards. If, think about with the Batman Spider-Man debate, sorry, I can keep going back to it, but say you're going to tell me, okay, why is Batman's powers more important than Spider-Man's powers? Then we can kind of work our way back to, what is their powers? What is their belief? In my thesis experience, I already had the ending in mind, and I knew what I wanted to say. I just didn't know how to say it. I knew that I wanted to have a commentary, give you all some more feedback on my thesis, and more little intro into it. My thesis was about the Mexican-American experience in the 1950s and what it looks like in comparison to the American dream. That's a big overall foundation of my thesis. But I had to work backwards. I had to figure out how I was actually going to say all that in a 55,000 word paper. And if you're saying, you can't say that in 55,000 words, it's actually really hard. It's actually really hard to debate something so heavy and so profound in such a short amount of time. Because the more you kind of keep going, the more you keep going into this, you could talk a lot. One thing I told Aliga, which I think is very special, y'all are assigned to write 2,000 words on average, maybe 3. Is that a little too much or no? That's about right. How many of y'all think that y'all text that within a week? Yeah, right? Come on. How many of y'all think y'all text or talk to your friends that much within like a few days? I talk to my wife constantly. She gets so annoyed. Like my poor wife has to hear me every single day from the I wake up at 6:30 and I start talking at 6:35. And I know I am the worst. It is terrible. And she just has to deal with it. But I can honestly say that I probably talked that much within 3 days. I could probably say I probably talked my whole thesis amount within 3 days. On average, just in word count. So, what is the root paper about? The next one, once you know your argument or topic, find resources with, and this is the key part, plenty of time. So we had about 8 resources on either side of the debate. That is actually good enough for, I don't know, maybe a 5 to 6 page paper pretty easily. 8 resources, that's fine. I'm assigning my students 10 resources on average for their research paper. But I'm assigning it at the very end. Y'all know your syllabus, right? Please tell me y'all know your syllabus at this point. Y'all know it by heart. Y'all could recite it if I asked y'all. But I'm having them do it. I'm going to give you an example. I'm assigning my theory paper next week, and then in November is a research paper. So it's all building up to it. And everything I'm doing is I'm making sure that they have at least 5 resources off the top of their head for their argument. Guys, if y'all don't know your theory paper right now, and if you're not just finding at least a little background resources, you're already falling a little bit behind. I mean, that's the truth. If I'm telling y'all to give me a 5-page paper in November and y'all have no idea where you're at right now, you're a little bit behind on the ball. Y'all need to find this with plenty of time. And I think that's very cool because I think it's a cool little amount of preparation. And it's not like y'all got to be writing your paper already. Y'all just be finding, what do I like? And that's where it kind of goes into the root also. So find your resources, plenty of time. I know this seems like the most basic teacher thing to say, but it's true. Yes. Okay, great, yeah. So resources could go to a few things. One, it could be, am I finding the articles or journals already, or am I just finding my points already that I want to make? I refer to resources, say with the Batman debate, I'm not just referring to the comics or the movies. I'm referring also to the points that you are making in terms of your argument. All your debate papers, they might just be straightforward research papers, but they're kind of a debate in a way because you're debating a point that is important to you. And that's how you kind of want to see it. I'm kind of saying a point that is important to me. I'm very passionate about this, and I want to make sure that I show you why I think it is valid. So you want to find your resources plenty of time. Your resources are your points. Your resources are also your articles, your movies. And resources can make or break your paper also. We had a good little kind of example of that. So your points and resources. I asked you, what are you referring to with Batman? And you said, I'm referring to comics. And I said, well, what about the movies? And when we made that point, a moral dilemma with how Batman is killing people or not killing people, in the movie, he kills a lot of people. In Batman vs. Superman, a lot of people accidentally die. Like a guy I remember fell off a building. That guy didn't survive. So if we kind of back this up and say, are resources important? Yeah, they're super important because your resources can easily make or break your paper. If you gave me that paper and you said, Batman never killed anyone, and I referred to something else, your paper is already going wrong. Say we're referring to the movies over here, and we're talking about how Spider-Man is lighthearted. Well, there's a lot of different Spider-Man comics also. So I could easily look to a different resource and say, actually, your debate is wrong and your paper is wrong, so it's already going bad, on a bad track. But there's a few things you can play with also. One, you want a resource plenty of time. You want to kind of, for every resource, I like to tell my students, there's always a second one with it. Say you're looking for a journal or a movie to go with your paper, whatever you're doing. And say you're finding a journal article, you're finding a research article. There's always a research article arguing something exactly opposite of that. So for every research you have, say you have only one article that kind of proves your point or kind of goes into what you're talking about, there's probably other articles that argue the exact same thing. And that's good, because all your papers are just part of a giant argument anyway. All your papers, you're entering into a dialogue anyway. So I love when students come to me with a cool research paper and they find their points and they back it up and they refer to it. And then they tell me, but there's also this paper that says something exactly opposite. Why? Because that shows me that that student did a lot of different things with that paper. It's showing me that he's having a dialogue with his own work. He's looking at his paper and he's saying, you know what? There's actually probably a good argument against this, but I'm going to show you why my argument is better. That is good. It's cool to have dialogue with your work, guys. So find resources, plenty of time. If you haven't started yet, please start soon. You have plenty of resources here. You have Mitchell, you have Alika, you have Teresa. Really, you have a whole school that really wants you to succeed while you're here at the Kings. So if you haven't started, please do that soon. And honestly, all your work is probably already leading into your main paper. So just kind of pay attention to that. Pay attention to how your assignments right now are leading into something bigger. Because as professors, we don't design the class by accident. I don't put an essay at the end of November just because I felt like it in the last week of October. No. I have my class planned out for a reason. Every assignment I am doing right now is planned out for a reason. It is to make sure that when November comes around, that my class is going to be in a good chance to succeed. And if you are paying attention and if you are dedicated to the class, you will pass my class. And that's how we want to make sure we design our classes. So please start soon. Once you have the resources, just write. Y'all are probably working on the first draft of your paper. And all y'all gotta do to start is literally just write something. Every day I had to put into my mind that I had to work from 2 to 4 Monday through Friday. I gave myself Saturday and Sunday off because I wanted sleep. But every day I had to work from 2 to 4. And a lot of times at 1:57, 1:58, 1:59, I had no idea what the heck I was going to write about. I thought, man, I got nothing today. I'm literally just going to stop right now. But I knew I had to finish that page soon. So I just had to write. Everything you're all doing are probably just a first draft, right? More than likely, I'll just have to turn in the first draft. Then after that, you get feedback. You got to turn in the second draft, maybe a third draft after that. So we're not expecting master work on the first draft. No offense, guys. You are great writers. You are not going to turn in a masterpiece on your first try, right? We got to accept that. We're not going to turn in a masterpiece on the first try. And y'all are not going to sound like the theologians that you are reading on your first try. And that's okay. I try to tell my students when I was teaching creative writing, I know that I am not expecting Ernest Hemingway to walk into the door. And I'm not going to read Pride and Prejudice on your first try on a 2-page essay about your life. Like, it's not going to be that profound to me. No offense. But I know that I'm going to get the best work that you could turn in. And I think that's important. We're not going to sound like the theologians we were reading. We're not going to sound like the philosophers that we were reading. We're going to sound exactly like how y'all talk on a daily basis. So the way y'all kind of just write, this talk. How would you say this paper to me if I was talking to you in a conversation? If we're at the cafe downstairs and I ask you, hey, what's your paper about? You're like, oh, I'm kind of going to this and this, and I'm asking you, oh, why is that important? And you all tell me, that's the best way to start writing. And one reason why that's important is because all of this is a dialogue. Your paper is not just some 2-dimensional work. Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. Especially with your kind of first draft, you can kind of play around with that, especially in my class. I know when they tell you, kind of keep it in, don't put yourself in that paper, and that's always usually a little kind of tricky thing. What I like to tell students is that you could kind of, I'm not going to see like your very beginnings, I'm only going to see what you turn in. So you could start writing in that way, say, I believe in this and this, and then you can kind of figure out, okay, how can I work this back to where I put it back into a third person point of view? But yeah, even if I could tell that the first draft you started off that way and then you kind of fixed it to something else, I honestly just care about if I see that you're turning something in with a solid idea behind it. And that's really what the first draft is about. Do you have your idea? Can you make this a paper to turn in the final? And can I help you along the way to make sure that it's the best paper you could turn in? So if you're having trouble writing, especially because, your personal voice is kind of just a little shaky, that's okay. But all your paper is, like I said, just a dialogue. Y'all have been blessed with the opportunity to enter in a dialogue that has been going on before you and will be going on after you. One thing I like to point out with students is, have anyone heard about Burke's parlor theory before? No? Burke's parlor theory is a very popular theory in English. We talk about how English and education should be taught as a way. Imagine if you're entering into a dining room table and there's people talking and you just jump in on the conversation, you're conversing with them, and then you jump on out and the conversation continues later. That's exactly what this is. Your research paper, your theory paper, anything that you're writing is you entering into a conversation that you have been blessed to enter in. It is not by accident that you're here at the Kings. You're here because y'all have been given divine provision to be here. Y'all worked hard to be here. Don't tell me that none of y'all worked hard to be here, because I know exactly what the process is like to be here. Y'all worked really, really hard to be here at the Kings, especially in this room. So y'all have been blessed with the chance to enter into a dialogue that has been going on thousands and thousands of years before you. A dialogue that has been debated thousands of years before you, and it will be going on, I'm sure, 1,000 years after you guys. And y'all are entering in your voice right here. So don't take it lightly, and don't feel like you're afraid to enter, because y'all have gotten the chance to be here, and y'all earned your way to be here. So don't think that it's not by accident that you're doing this. That was a great point. What if my voice is just kind of not where the theologians that were at before me? It doesn't matter. I'm not expecting a paper from theologian. I'm expecting a paper from you. I'm expecting a paper with your opinion, with your voice, with your beliefs, and I want to see how that looks like. I'm not going to expect anything else or anything on top of that. And I'm sure your professors, Dr. Luter, Dr. Hunsinger, anyone else, we just want to see what you guys think. And I want to see if y'all could form a good research paper argument to me. I'm not asking for what C.S. Lewis thinks, if that makes sense. So, a couple points. Also, plan out good distractions. There's good ways to get distracted. I read it up here, actually. I have been saying one important point this whole time. I worked only from 2 to 4 on my thesis. And even in that time, I wrote, if I did a paragraph, I usually have the TV playing on in the background, so after a paragraph, I would just turn on the volume, and I put it head on like NFL Network, because I love sports anyway. But I would either do that, or I'll have, after a paragraph, a Twitter break or something break. Plan out good distractions to reward yourself. Anyone that says, don't distract yourself, turn off your phone, lock yourself in a cave, that's impossible. So y'all are not going to go to a deserted island in the middle of Grapevine somewhere to write your essay. That's not going to happen. Y'all got to plan out good distractions to kind of help encourage yourself. If you all talk to Matt, I ask him, hey, what's a good distraction you do? And he's like, I have John Mayer playing on in the background usually. I go to my favorite John Mayer album, I play that bad boy, and I just go right to the end. And that's how he writes the paper. When it ends, he's done. And no matter where he left off there. So plan out good distractions. If y'all got to reward yourself with family time after a paragraph, or Twitter time, or video game time, I did all of it and above for my thesis, but I only planned out to work from 2 to 4 every day. Just because I knew that was my prime writing time. That was when I was at my best. And y'all got to ask yourself, when are you at your best? When is your prime time to work? Is it from 7 to 9, 11 to 1, 6 to 8, whatever. Whatever it is, plan it out, figure out when your brain is working the best, and just write. And it's okay to not finish that thought at the end of that hour. It's okay to say, you know what, I did my best for the day, I'll continue tomorrow. That's perfectly fine. But that only works, like I said, if you all give yourself plenty of time. So don't think that you're going to do that on the day before the essay. Because I could tell when y'all exactly did that the day before the essay. So please give yourself good distractions. I'm not expecting anything less. And my last point that I want to go into is that you are already the best writer that you know. You guys are already prepared to write this essay. Y'all gave me 16 points of why a Batman versus Superman bait was important. It's not that important. No offense. We all know Batman is better off the bat. But if you are debating something extremely more important, extremely more challenging, y'all could easily come up with a lot more points than that. And y'all could easily write a lot more than that. Like I said, y'all write a lot more on a weekly basis than I'm asking you for a paper going to be due in a month. If y'all say, I don't have enough time to finish that research paper, trust me, I know how much y'all text and email me on a daily basis. And I also know how many times we could send an email to an admissions counselor when they need their stuff to be turned in. I see it all the time. Y'all could easily write a paper within that time frame. But you guys are just already the best writers that you know. Don't think you got to sound like anything else. I'm not expecting y'all to sound like anyone else, like any expert in any field. I'm just wanting y'all to be who you are in this paper. So 6, you are the best writer already. And if you're saying, is this really helping me as a writer? It is. Because I see a lot of your preparation, a lot of your kind of hesitance to work on a paper as y'all just kind of being afraid of like, what if this isn't good enough? What if I turn in this paper and it's not the best work I can do? And what if I don't get that grade? And that's the part that we got to kill. That's a hesitation that we got to work out. Because if y'all are not believing that you're already the best writer and that you're not worthy enough to be here, then we got to work that out. And we can help you guys with that. Because y'all are worthy enough to be here, the Kings. Like I said, y'all already made it here. So a lot of times your research papers and your research hesitancy are not issues with starting or beginning. How do I make this transition work? It's about kind of working out, am I really a good enough student to be in this class? And I can already tell you that you are. So yeah, it's kind of just how it goes. Y'all are already the best writers you can be. Y'all already have plenty of resources. It's just about good distractions, dialogue. You guys are just got to write. You got to write with plenty of time. And you got to know what is the root of your arguments. And if y'all can't tell me that from the very beginning, if y'all don't believe that, then we can work that out. And we have plenty of people here that can help you with that too. Are there any questions that I can help you out with? Yes. Technical? Yeah, research paper especially. So I have a clear division in my class. I have a theory paper and I have a research paper. Theory paper, I'm not asking my students for like 5 points or 10 points to back it up. I'm just asking them, what is their theory? But I'm telling them that your theory paper will lead into your research paper. And then that's when I want to see your backup and your resources. So a study works. Your research paper could be a study between you asking classmates, you asking people on the street, you going to a school, you going to a church, and that's how you can kind of go into the background. But the research paper is always going to be a paper that has to do with background, resources. Are you studying this information? Are you not just using journals? Are you actually using peer-to-peer research? Are you kind of looking into different modes of research in itself? Honestly, I love more peer-to-peer research. That's just me on a technical side. So studies are great for that. Any other questions? Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. I started with this, and I started this whole entire seminar thinking, okay, I'm going to talk about in a presentation basically about a research paper. So I kind of made like a little mini research paper with like bullet points and stuff. Really, with your presentations and with research papers, they kind of work hand in hand. Everything that you're going to present about your presentation is going to be what, like 5 minutes around there? 8 to 10 minutes. So your research paper is really just there to back you up. Your research paper is to make sure that you have enough points to make it through your 8 to 10 minute time frame. You don't want to sound like your paper too much. You don't want to sound like you're just reciting exactly what you just wrote. And you want to look at it more as the skeleton to your presentation itself. I'm presenting this topic and I'm using these points and these are why they're important to me. And you're using that as kind of like the ribcage to what you want to speak from. So that's kind of how I use this. I wrote a pretty long little paper, but I knew that I was only going to use it to just go back to the points and go back to the skeleton of what my presentation was going to be about. So they could work hand in hand. Your research paper, you want to back up your presentation. Your presentation, you really want to flow off your research paper and get right to it from there. Yeah. If you need an 8 to 10 page or 8 to 10 minute research paper, you definitely want at least 8 to 10 paragraphs, if that makes sense. And you kind of want to kind of work from that. Kind of see each paragraph as your talking point, and each paragraph has like a minute for you to kind of elaborate on. Yeah, that's a great question. How do you find the resources? Obviously, we have a library with a ton of resources. Y'all also have a giant database at your phone or on your laptop. And you can just type in the main keyword. And a lot of times students ask me, how do I find the exact resource? And it's as easy as what is the main keyword of your paper. If it's about Messianic Jewish studies, y'all could just type in that. If it's about Christology, you could type in Christology. And then you kind of go from there. And you had a good point. What if you get caught up in too many articles and resources? What did that look like? You also want to give yourself a little mini limit. If y'all know the time frame of when your essay is due, and you got to find 10 to 20 resources to kind of help back you up, cap it off. Just know I need max, I'll say a good 15 of them, a good amount for all your papers and all your classes. 15 resources, either arguing for, arguing against, either way. I'm assigning a research paper with 10 minimum, and maybe 20 maximum. But you always want to aim for that 15 amount. But yeah, that's a great point. You don't want to get caught up in too much research. And for everything there is that I've talked about, there's always a backwards point to it. But that's kind of the responsibility matter on your guys' side of the student. Know when is a good time to cut it off. Know when is a good time to start just writing. And don't get too caught up in making sure you have 40 resources for a 2-page paper. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. My view, especially, is that your thesis statement should always come from the end to the beginning. It should always wrap up in a pretty nice way. As a professor and as a reader, I really don't like when the paper is kind of open-ended at the very end. It feels a little incomplete to me. Say, for instance, I ask my students for a literacy narrative on their literacy background and why it's important. And some students will turn into me a paper that kind of just stops at a sentence, and I'm kind of like, oh, it didn't feel earned to me that you kind of got this far. So really, with your thesis statement, that is a key part. Of course, you want to have that in the intro. You always want to have your thesis statement somewhere in the first paragraph that you're writing. And you always want to have it at the end. If your professor wants it, kind of heavy throughout, it's because he really wants you to make sure that you're going to have it at the end also. Yeah, so if you're kind of repeating your thesis statement over and over, that's not bad. And they're probably just doing that to make sure that you know what you're writing about and that you're going to get to an end that is complete and that it's finalized. But your thesis statement is, of course, it sounds scary, but it's really just your stance on a topic. And it's, imagine you're going to talk with a friend, it's going to be what you're going to talk about and what you're going to believe about. And you really want that. If I was going to argue with you, again, going back to Batman versus Superman, why Batman is important, I'll say Batman a million times. But it's because I believe in that thesis statement. So I'm going to keep repeating it over, and that's okay, because it's showing you that my argument is pretty strong. My research paper is pretty strong. Yeah. Any other questions, comments? No, cool. And so if y'all don't have any more, it was awesome to be here with y'all. I hope y'all got a little encouraged about your paper, and please come to me or Alika or Teresa with any questions. Thank y'all.